What is happening? What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to another Acknowledge Him podcast. Joined with my brothers today. We are much later than usual. I hope that is not off-putting, but as I've told y'all last week, I would be traveling and times would be different. Next week we should be back on schedule. But wanted to talk to y'all today because yesterday I did talk about, if you saw the Millennium Marketing Morning Show, we talked about three things that can really cost you a lot of money in your career. We talked about those things being getting responding emotionally. We talked about fighting for the need to be right or fighting to be heard. And we also talked about getting defensive when being confronted. We talked about all three of these things yesterday. And my brother here wanted to go over a little bit more of these things by actually talking about pride. So I wanted to share the mic over with him and give you the little rundown. Hey, how you doing, sis? Welcome to the stream. And kick it off. What's on your mind today, brother? Because I'm ready to talk about this.
Well, actually, I said that I could listen to you about it, and you were like, then you can invite me on it because I wanted to hear you go deeper into it. But now you invite
Okay,
me, so
I can do that. I can
we
do that.
can talk about that if we really can get into it because there's a lot. We've done on pride for a while. Um, for those who know and for those who don't know, both of us, Abaddon and Yofi, both have stripped the word pride and proud from our vocabulary because we say it a lot. And although it is true that words and the meanings of words change as the people change, that is true. I don't want to deny that. When it comes to things that God calls sin, then how do you make that positive? I want to start us off with that. Like, how do you make something that is mentioned well over almost 200 times in the Old Testament alone, and every last one of them are negative? How do you change that to be a positive thing? To talk about how
I can
proud
tell you.
you are. I'm proud of this person. I'm proud of that person, or I've got a lot of pride in this. I take pride in that. And I'm like, how do you change that to be positive when God calls it sin?
I can tell you. In the last days, they will call evil good and good evil.
Well, then we can just end the stream right there, okay?
that's that's basically how in the last days, and it may seem like I'm being jocular right now. I'm actually being serious. Look at everything. Look at how. Matter of fact, I'll go here. Look at how in the original use of the word gay meant happy.
Yeah. Well, and
And
that, where I look at that, and this is why I because you can say it's not a big deal. We know what the original meaning is and things like that. I'm not talking about how the word gay changed meanings over time. I'm not even meaning that.
mhm.
I'm talking about something that is a sin. This is a quality,
Oh,
not
I could go there too.
something that is happy, which you can still actually use gay to mean happy or upscale. You can still do that with we got the Christmas music, right? Let the have yourself a merry little
That's
Christmas,
why.
make the tide gay. You can still actually
That's why I was coming at with it.
so I'm not really stressing that you can't change the meaning of words. I'm talking about the quality of pride. Where do you see that? This is something that God hates, so it's just like, why would you claim to be something that God hates? Well, because when I say it like that, I don't mean it like that. I get that. But shouldn't you at least try to use the words that God is using when he says it a certain way? Especially because when you look at pride, even going into, there's like anime, so you know who I'm going to use. When you look
Go ahead.
at at like your Dragon Ball characters, right? And Vegeta and my pride, my pride, my pride. It's a negative thing. Like even you're trying to spin it to be a positive thing, and there's nothing positive about it. If you were to actually strip that pride, you'd be a lot better off, bro. So, I just look at things and we continue to use this word, and I'm like, it's not used in a positive light. So I did want to talk about that because I think that went right along
Yeah,
with what you were saying.
I wanna chime in because here's the thing. I do, like I said, I do understand word we have changed the meanings of words, right? And I do get that. But what I will say is when there needs to be a change, when we want to, I think the very basis of this has to be our understanding of words, and words are building blocks to vision. The reason why I say that is because when you can only describe what you see with words. So because of that, I'm very particular of certain words, and I just look at just all throughout the Bible. Like you've mentioned, you have taught, American vision, Hebrew vision, and I wonder through the Hebrew vision, did they often just change the words as they went along in culture, or did they have a set of what these words will mean, and this is what will mean as generations will pass on? Because if that was the case, then we as people, I would say we are truly inhibiting the word pride by saying, well, you know what, I could just change what it means. Like we're
Mm,
inhibiting the word itself just by saying, well, I could just change what it means. It doesn't mean that when I say that. Because in the same sense, and this is just setting up for the whole conversation. You are not leaving your own time, Jessica. This could set up the whole conversation for why so many people use the B word in a positive sense. Well, I don't mean it that way. I mean it in a positive way. Use the N word. Well, I don't mean it that way. I mean it in a positive way. And then it's like, yeah, your intention in your heart to say, I mean this as in a term of endearment, but in any sense, what's stopping somebody from saying, oh, there goes my ugly old hag, I love you? What's stopping from that person from saying that's in term of endearment?
so you're looking at the slippery slope idea, right? Like where does it end? Where's the line drawn? If you can just
Exactly.
change it. And that's why I'm saying, as far as I get that, things change. You have terrible. Terrible a couple hundred years ago meant very good, whereas today terrible is the worst that you would use. And people are like, what are you talking about? That can be a change. I was actually just doing this in class. I was teaching on Thursday. And they were just like, I said, well, let me bring it to you like this. You've got terrible, and then a word that's the same exact word, but it means the opposite, terrific. I'm like, they both come from the same word, yet one we've kind of tried to change over time. So I can see that but what I'm saying with this, let's go back to pride, is that this is sin.
I'll go back to pride. Yeah,
That's why
and I want to touch.
I
I want to
always
touch on
make
that.
emphasis. It's not terrible. It's not gay. It's not the N word or the B word. This is an actual description of sin. This is what when you talk about the main characteristic of the devil himself, it's pride. So I'm like, I think this one's a little bit. I think we should focus just a little bit more on this. So I wanted to talk about like the meaning, because I used to play Sesame Street, right, for the babies and stuff, all those years ago.
Hmm.
But Elmo asked, like, what's pride? And it's like, well, when you feel really good about something you do. And even then, I was just like, that's not what pride is. If that's pride, then if we pray for somebody and then we go help them, and they get themselves a house to live. They've got food, clothing, and shelter, and we help them. You're supposed to feel good about doing the will of God. That's not pride.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like that has nothing to do with pride. So I was like, so what is the
Nothing to do with
Bible
pride.
mean when we talk about pride? And maybe this is why we shouldn't call ourselves proud. So I wanted to get into that. What do you think?
But I would love to go into that because why not just say I'm happy for you?
Yeah,
Why not
because
just say, I get it. I'm saying I'm well pleased. Maybe sound off-putting to some people. Say, yo, I'm really happy for you. I'm
yeah,
happy this happened. I'm glad this puts a smile on my face. There are so many different things, but when we say I'm proud, we're putting more so of a focus on us and how we feel
mm,
in other cases. Now, what I will say, and for those of you who wonder what I was doing, I was picking my Bible because I was trying to go to Proverbs 16, and I'm gonna go from here for a second. But I do want to address what you're saying. 'Cause I don't want to get off topic. The reason why we should be careful with the word pride because I do want to honor why this will cost you anything. And excuse me, this not anything. This will cost you everything. Pride in the biggest sense can blind you in many different ways. And the reason why I'm careful about the words, just like I said, this is building up for everything. Words are the building blocks to vision. So
mm.
if we are continuously attaching ourselves to a word as to which Proverbs 16:5 even says, everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though
Wow.
hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. I am calling every time that I say that I am proud, I am saying I am abominable to the Lord. That's not my words,
Why?
that's the Lord's
Why is
words.
it so serious? Why is it so serious? I think this is important for those of you who are following. This is serious. An abomination is something that is detestable. Like, ugh,
Because
this thing.
I could tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why in a way that many of you have probably never heard before. You know why? It goes back to in Genesis. It goes back into Genesis where it says it is not good for man to be alone, and proud is an isolation of self.
Oh yeah,
Pride isolates and edifies self. It does not focus on community. It does not focus on everybody else.
yeah.
That's why it's abominable to the Lord.
Let's get into pride right here. I wanted to get. It's like a Bible study we're doing. So
Go for it.
when you talk about pride, is one of the main characteristics of the devil, right? So I love Isaiah 14, where
Let me turn it.
I'm just going to go to 13, and I'm a King James guy. I went to school for English, so King James doesn't bother me. But if anybody else wants to read something else, as long as it's not the newly inspired version, I'm okay. But check it for that. I guess I'll just read it in English for those people. For you said in your heart, and this is talking about the devil here, although it's a metaphor, but still. All right, he says, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. See how many eyes he said in there? I'm like,
You went.
that's where you get that. We have, and I've gotten into some debates about this, but pride is the opposite of humility, and humility is not giving credit to somebody else. How some people will say, thank you. And you're not allowed to say you're welcome. You got to say it was God, and that's not really humility. Humility is the act of being like God. And in a sense of being invisible, God is invisible. He's eternal. He is invisible. He is not made of anything that is seen or unseen by our eyes. Like we think that God's invisible means that he's walking around, but we just can't see him with our eyes. We even have machines that can detect spiritual activity now. So you can still detect them, you can still see them. But as far as God, he cannot be seen because he's eternal. There's no beginning, there's no end, there's nothing to see. So God
Can't even
here,
be seen by the unseen.
yeah, as invisible as they are to us, he is to them. So I'm like, God still lets it rain on the just and the unjust. You can hate God and curse God your entire life, and it would not affect him in the slightest. He would still be who he is to you. You can like we think that, oh well, if you don't praise God, he's going to do this and he's going to change. You really think that your praise or lack of praise can affect God at all? That would be like saying that if everybody on the planet went blind, that the sun would get sad and stop shining. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's not that way. God is invisible, he's eternal, he is unmoved and unaffected by us. We are the ones who are moved by him. So I'm like, if God is invisible, then humility is the art of invisibility. Now you're getting into Ninja Turtles from 1990, right? Right, the art of invisibility. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's the art of invisibility, of being like the Father in that case. Pride is the opposite. Pride is the art of visibility, making yourself visible, trying to be visible. You're doing this for the likes, you're doing this for the clicks, you're doing this for the attention. You're Roman Reigns. You just want to be acknowledged. Everybody has to acknowledge you. That is the main thing of pride. You have to be acknowledged. God doesn't have to be
Exactly.
acknowledged. He's still going to be God. How many of us would do what we do if there was no acknowledgement? That's the main difference with pride and humility. It's not, oh well, just don't look at me. It's not like that. It's not running away from the spotlight. It just means that you don't seek it. So the devil wants to be seen. That's what pride is. So how do we play into his pride? By letting him be seen. How about we post everything about what the devil's doing? How about we make a movie about the devil and get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. You spent 30 minutes talking about Jesus and 4 hours talking about the devil and casting out. Well, guess what? You've played into the devil's pride. He wants you to talk about him. He wants you to see him. It's kind of like I don't watch thriller movies, but wasn't it like Freddy Krueger, right? Like if you just stop talking about him and stop actually doing that, he would lose his power. If you didn't, like, what was that? Is that how that worked? I don't remember completely.
Yeah. Shout out to Jakin. Jakin, if you don't get on here, bro,
He's
he
not.
got a whole invite.
How about people believing in him? I said, I think the Greek gods, they need to be worshipped. You're thinking
But
of the
no, I really want to talk about this because what you said is key. And you touched on Isaiah. You said there's a lot of eyes there, right?
Mhm.
What does that come in right against in Ephesians? Ephesians. Did it say I am seated with him in heavenly places, or we
Oh,
are seated with him in heavenly places?
I see where you're
You
going.
see, pride focuses on I, the kingdom focuses on we. Everything is about what can I watch this. What can I do for the kingdom? Is ooh, all right. I'm not trying to hurt feelings. Okay. What can I do for the kingdom is not kingdom. It's what can we do for the kingdom? How can I partner with my brother or my sister? Because you was not created to work solo. I don't care who you are. God did not create some people to work solo and other people to work in groups. No. Everyone needs somebody else they could work with.
Mhm.
And I can say that because I wore that badge. Matter of fact, Yofi and Jacob, they could both attest to that. That I and even Tyrone even I was the poster child of doing everything by myself. I
Yeah.
was the person who would work 20 hours a day. and wake up the next day and go to work. And I would work 8 hours, one job,
Yeah.
still make time for family, and work 4 to 5 hours doing YouTube.
Yeah,
So,
bro. The
it, yeah,
you go ahead.
that's gonna finish up and say, and the only reason why I did not get help, y'all want to hear this? Y'all want to hear this? I did not trust people to do the job better than me.
You know what that
That's
is?
it.
Though? That's not a trait of power. That's actually the opposite of power. We have all these relationships
Weakness.
where I don't trust people, or people have done me wrong and all of these things, and it's like you think that that's a strength. You know how women will bring other past relationships in and the guy has to prove himself, or the other way around, but it's like that's pride in a sense of you have to be the one to do it. You're still trying to be seen. You have to be the one to solve the problems. You have to be the one. How many pastors do we have that shouldn't be pastors? How many people do we have that are prophets that don't need to be prophets? But you have to be the one. So all of this is actually weakness. It's actually it's a fear. It's done. You think that it's a power, but it's actually a fear. And perfect love casts out fear, to where you would be able to trust and things like that. And it's just like, well, it's not that easy. It's not. It's a lot easier to let go than to actually continue to hold on to that thing, because that's a wound that you're holding on to, and wounds tend to fester. Now everybody who comes in contact
Uh
with you is
oh.
diseased because of you.
Uh
But
oh.
it's a strength. It's pride. It's just pride. So it's amazing. I wanted to give you you went into the scripture, and I love how you went into Ephesians. And I'm gonna say it again, like you said, we hear differently. Verse 20 of chapter 3. Now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that continues to work in us. We still see you. God can do exceedingly abundantly more than all that I ask or think. No, not I. It's we. It's the church. The Bible is not a you book. The Bible is not written to you. That's like a big blow to Americans, right? The Bible's not written to you. It's written. The New Testament's written to the church. It's written to the church as to how to function as a body. But Corinthians goes into that. You think that you're the hand and you don't have need of anything else. And let me tell you, like it, and I know it might be vulgar, but if you don't even pass gas, you'll die eventually. Like if if you don't go to the bathroom, you'll die, which means that those parts of the
You don't
body
let one off, you're dead.
just as important. You're gonna get demonetized.
No, 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 no. I said, if you don't let one off, you're dead.
I mean, like eventually, if you do not go to the bathroom, you will die. So it's like, as much as you don't want to admit it, like all other parts of the body are important too, even if it's a job that you don't like. So I'm like, we all have our function in this planet, and if we don't, this planet, I'm not going to say that, on this earth.
I caught that.
About with that one. Let me put my tinfoil hat on and talk about that. But we all have our function on this earth, and it has to be a we. It's not. I'm out there. So I've given this testimony before. If you could give me just a minute. I don't know if I've given it on this feed, but I almost died doing that solo game. I left the church because my son was sick, and that was just it. My son was sick, and I was looking for healing because I was just told, basically, doctors, he's just going to be like that his whole life. That's it. There's nothing you can do. That's just it. And every time that I read the Bible, I'm like, why is it that Jesus is healing all who are oppressed by the devil and my son is sick? I'm shouting, I'm doing cartwheels, I'm speaking in tongues, I'm praying, I'm preaching. I don't, and it got to a point to where, because this is what the world will make you feel. what did you do wrong? So I would often go to God, like, what am I doing wrong? Why is my son still like this? You know, so um, because where I was, they didn't necessarily understand at that point. There was a lot of church hurt there, not excusing any of it. But I didn't set foot in a church in like at least 5 years, man. I just left and I went off to find healing. I'm like, I just wanted, that's where a lot of, that's why I pray so deeply. You know, I'm in Walmart. I'm praying for people just today before the stream, you know, like I'm going to pray for somebody for healing, because it's personal. But in my crusade, my one man crusade, I ended up in the hospital, man. Like I had seen anything healed. I had seen people get up from wheelchairs right in the middle of like eating food at Cracker Barrel. You know, I would pick people up. You've seen, on my team, I didn't personally do it, but on my team, the guy who trained me raised 6, 7 people from the dead. Of course, he was a first responder, so he got to see a lot more dead bodies than I did. But, it's like we had seen anything healed. Meanwhile, my son was still suffering. So I'm praying. I'm going out every day praying for people. I'm watching Todd White. I'm watching anybody. I don't care what their doctrine sounds like. If they know how to heal the sick, I want to know what they know, right? So I'm doing this, but meanwhile, I wasn't doing this because I loved people. I was doing this because I hated the devil. I hated what he did to my son. I hated what he had done to people. And I still kind of do in a way, but not in that sense. So I was just like, I'm going to attack him any way that I can. And in some years, I ended up in the hospital, bleeding out. I had lost so much blood internally, like I was just internal bleeding from stress, that like I literally I passed out in the hospital one day. I went to the hospital and my wife knew when I told her to call an ambulance, she knew because I was like, I'm never calling an ambulance. So she's like, are you sure? And like I just knew something was going wrong. And so I went to the hospital and they put me to sleep. I woke up, tried to even go to the bathroom because I felt like I needed to vomit. And I passed out on the way to the bathroom in the middle of the night at the hospital and woke up on a stretcher on the way to ICU. They told me that I had my blood levels, my hemoglobin levels were so low that I shouldn't even be conscious. Like they were asking me if I knew my name. They were like, it's an emergency. So they were like, are you allergic to anything? I was like, apparently gravity, like, I'm like, what am I doing over here? It's like, and I'm literally, mind you, while I'm on my way to ICU on a stretcher, because they said that when I passed out, they said blood was coming from everywhere that blood could come out, blood was coming out. That's how much I was bleeding out, and it was like, they were like, you shouldn't be, you should pretty much be dead. My hemoglobin levels were at a 6. They said it's supposed to be at a 13. They gave me over 6 bags of blood as a transfusion emergency, whether I wanted them or not, because they were like, he's going to die if we don't get him some blood. So all of that, and they wouldn't let me eat until, all of that. And what I asked, and God had to sit me down and he showed me, he's just like, now that you're here and you actually can't leave, mind you, I'm praying for people on the stretcher on the way to ICU. I'm praying for my nurses. They're getting healed. While I'm on the hospital bed on my way to ICU, they thought I was joking. And, I'm still praying for people. But God revealed to me, he said, Yofi, he said, for the past 2.5 years, you've woken up every single day just to attack the devil. He's just like, it wasn't because you loved people. It was because you hated him. And it had to be you, because unless somebody thought the exact way that you did, you thought about them from the perspective of your old church. You didn't forgive your old church. You didn't forget, all of that. It was just there. And he's like, and the devil took advantage of that. He's just like, go ahead, go out here and pray for the sick. He's like, that's fine. But based on you wearing your body out, you're going to die. And then the enemy's going to be like, good, one gone. because you're not going to be able to last with this one-man band idea. It was pride. It was prideful. And unforgiveness the entire time. I'm seeing people healed. I'm seeing people get up from wheelchairs. We've seen mental retardation heal. We've seen all of these things. And I was still living with unforgiveness in my heart and pride. So it's like you have to understand that that's real. The devil's just waiting for an opportunity to kill me. He was just waiting, so that pride thing is a big deal to me. Like when we discuss it, and no, I don't say I'm proud anymore. I don't say that because I know what that life is to be proud. I know what it's like to be Vegeta. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, it's not a good thing. Those who watch Dragon Ball, who have seen it,
Do y'all see how this connects? This could have cost him his life. When I said pride can cost you everything, I'm serious.
It should have cost me my life. I should be dead. But I'm not.
Yeah, God had other plans. So, books, "Pride is the Devil" by J. Cole. I've not heard that song, but I haven't heard J. Cole in a while. But anyway, I wanted to. He's a rapper.
I'm just no.
I'm about to say North Carolina rapper. But what I wanted to touch on though, because I really appreciate. First of all, thank you for sharing your testimony on that. That's one, because when you said it's like it had to be you, it had to be you, it had to be you. I want to do an inverse on that. I want to show another side of pride that isn't talked about. And this side of pride could still cost you everything by saying the exact opposite. It can never be me. I'll never be able to do this. I'm not good enough. No, everyone else is better than me at this. When we start saying words and we lower the bar for ourselves and we underspeak for ourselves, that is a form of pride that no one talks about. Because pride, by definition, is an exaggeration of your worth and your esteem. So we have often just assumed that just meant overconfidence, and someone who has a super high esteem for themselves, and it's like nothing can ever touch me. We always saw that as prideful. But what about someone who is underconfident? What about somebody who doesn't think the best of themselves and will talk down of themselves in spite of what God says? And you know who did this in the Bible? Because there is an example of this in the Bible, and a lot of people miss it because they don't read the whole book. And Yofi knows what I'm going to say.
I already know where you're going. I'll sign off.
I'm doing it. Job.
I knew it.
Job was
like when you were giving an example, I was like, he's gonna bring up that guy, man.
Job is somebody who was underconfident. And if you read the whole book, despite of what is said, he is saying, "No, I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm this." Saying all of the wrong things about himself until God yanks him by the collar. It's like, yo, pull up your pants like a man and talk to me now. You had all this to say for 30 some odd chapters. Let's talk. And the first thing Job says, "Nah, I don't got anything to say to you." Is that not the definition of pride in itself?
After you put God on trial, by the way, if we I just did a video on this. I'm gonna have to do a part 2 now because it's just like if you read Job, like people, let's go back because I want to get, because if I start talking about it, it's gonna happen. That underconfidence is a thing, but we have to remember that it's the same thing. If somebody has an exaggerated view of themselves in the high set and they have an exaggerated view of themselves in the low set, it's still putting emphasis on yourself. It's still wanting to be seen. When you're like, no, I can't do this. Well, you want people to feel sorry for you. You know, that victim
we want people to see
mentality
you.
that we see a lot going on right now. You want emphasis on you. It may not be the same type of I can do anything and I'm, overconfident, but it's still pride because the message is me. Even if it's I can't do it, the message is still about you. It should be about the act, but it's like, no, I can't. No, get that away. Think about Jesus. Jesus would have been called overconfident, bro. Jesus would have been called arrogant today. Somebody's talking about, I am the Son of God. Are you serious?
Who are you to say that?
Who are you to say that? Who are you to go around? You're not even 50 years old. How arrogant do you think you are to compare?
You what? You 30? Who's your coach? Who's your pastor?
Yeah,
like who's your coach? Who's your pastor? Like he would get all those questions.
They started making fun of his mother. Remember, they were just like, "Ain't this Mary's kid? Remember the one who ain't got no daddy? Yeah, remember him? Yeah, ain't that? Yeah, that's Joseph's son. Joseph's son and all. They making fun of him. No, why don't you go build us a table or something? You know what I'm saying? You over here trying to preach stuff, but it's because of the.
Aren't you that carpenter's boy? Like, go ahead and build something,
boy, man. Go build me a table. Nowhere in the Bible does Jesus ever build anything, and it's like. But it's just like you got to remember. It's like Jesus would have been called. He was called arrogant.
Don't do that. Don't do that. You're gonna derail me. You say that, I'm gonna go.
If it's true, he wasn't saying anything about himself that was not true. When he called himself the Son of Man, that has specific references back to the Old Testament. The Son of Man. The Jews would know what Son of Man means. All of these titles, that would be arrogant, man. But it's because he was speaking truth about himself and he was backing it up because look at the miracles. Look at all of these things. Can you deny it? But today, you say anything about yourself. You say that you can make 10 3-pointers in a row. Oh, that's arrogant. But he makes 10 3-pointers in a row every day.
I'm going to say
arrogance is the exaggeration of what it is.
I want to say this.
It would be arrogant of you. It would be prideful if you can make 10 3-pointers. And then you say, well, I'm not really that good. Arrogance. That's pride. That's pride.
Thank you.
That you can do it and you're not, and you're lying about what
you know. Like, really, bro?
Me.
No, not you. Not you. Because, listen, y'all would have called Jesus. Jesus said this to his parents that were looking for him for 3 days. When they found him, you know what the first thing he said? You know the first thing he said? How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? So you're talking to your mother and your father, saying I'm about my Father's business.
He's 12.
He's 12 years old, telling his mother and his father this. That would have been called prideful in today's times. Like that. Do you know how many comments that was recorded on social media and everything, or Facebook or something? You know how many comments will say, "Could it be me? Would be my kids saying that?" All of that. Can we make the Bible real? Can we make this book real for a second and not make it a storybook? That's why but the reason why we want to talk about pride is because Jesus, no matter who it was, lowered the bar of who he is.
Say that twice.
So what? Jesus, no matter who it was, lowered the bar for who he is. So if he never lowered the bar for who he is, no matter who it was he was talking to, why is it that we feel that we have to lower the bar for who we are, no matter what room we have to go into? Oh, because I'm in this room, I have to lower the bar so that people can understand me. No, catch up with the light of the room where it's at. If I'm light and the room is dark, that means hey, that room's gonna be a bit brighter when I walk in.
You know what
But
that is though? Let's really hit it, because there are two things. First of all, your light's not made to be dim. Okay, you're not
mm,
made to be a dim light.
stop glowing.
You're also not
Stop
made to be
glowing.
a bright light in the church. All right. So, and I'm talking about in the church building. All right. Light is made to be light on this earth. All right. So for point number one, for people who keep talking about how bad it is out there,
Go out
why
there.
is it bad if you're there? It should not be, because if it's so dark, that means that one candle can light an entire house. If it's that dark, all right. You see what happens when there are no street lights? Look at how bright the sky gets. Look at how bright it is. You got a full moon. Sometimes I would think that it's daylight. All right, because if it's really dark, and I live in the backwoods, so it's like when there's a full moon, my yard is bright. Why? Because there are no lights around. So if you're around, it should not be dark. There should not be darkness. For people to say, well, the Bible says that there's a great falling away and all that. Look, listen. All right. I'm not saying that that time is past. What I'm saying is that
I want
we
to talk
are
about it.
very, very misinformed, thinking that falling away means I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to sit back and wait for Jesus to do something that he commanded
I
me
would say
to.
that's prideful.
That is prideful. You know, you can do things. It should not be dark because you're there. Now, I'm not saying that we can do everything. There are some things that are outside of our jurisdiction, but what you can do, you can do. Okay, you can do things. A lot of times it's because we won't do it, and then that's where you walk into pride. The second thing is that, well, that was Jesus. Let's not take Jesus's humanity away from him, y'all. Let's stop. Well, Jesus is God. Where do you ever see Jesus call himself God? Never. It's not in there. Don't even open up your Bible. It's not in there. Okay. Jesus did what he did as a man. And do you know Jesus is still a man? That's a dude. Okay. That's a guy. He had to sleep. He had to he had to go to the bathroom. We think Jesus didn't, eat a patch of bad beans at any time. You know what I mean? Like, he had to sleep. He had to do everything that we do. So it's like, if he did all that as a man, why is it that you, as a man or a woman, can't do it? Well, Jesus knew he was God. Jesus believed he was God. Jesus didn't know he was God, because it takes faith to please God. And Jesus, before he performed any miracles, God parts the sky and says, "This is my son in whom I am well pleased." He didn't say proud of, he said well pleased. If faith pleases God, that means that before Jesus performed any miracles, he had faith. That means that he performed as far as the law. He did it all as a man. He didn't do it as God. When he was performing miracles, he was doing it as a man, which means you can perform miracles. So it's just like, we just look at it as, well, that's Jesus. Well, the Bible says in First Corinthians that he that's joined to the Lord is one spirit with the Lord, not two spirits, one spirit with the Lord. So if you're joined to the Lord, why are you separating what God has joined together? Like, we're
I'm
doing
gonna.
that pride. We're downplaying ourselves yet again in order to not shine. And I'm like, the
I
world is
wanted
so
to go with that.
deceived because of that.
I wanted to touch on that because thank you, and I appreciate that because this is this is where I want to start driving us home to. If you're just joining in, welcome. I appreciate all of you who are liking, who are hitting the love icon, whatever icon on Facebook and on YouTube, and yeah, Facebook and YouTube. I appreciate you all, but I really want to show y'all something, right? When you if you haven't gained anything from this, it's that words and the words we attach ourselves to create an identity. And an identity is something that we'll continuously walk in. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because if we don't have parameters on what words we attach ourselves, we'll attach ourselves to any word that we feel like we belong to. which is why we call ourselves. Where I'm saying we as a church, we have called ourselves sinners. No way. Yes, I'm going there with that.
You
That's
going
why
there? You going there?
I'm going. I'm going there with that.
I'm going on
It
mute.
is. It is a prideful thing for a born again Christian to call themselves a sinner. Why? Because you're saying, despite of what the book actually says, I relate more to the bad actions that I am having trouble letting go of or don't want to let go of in some cases than saying my identity is more in what an innocent man died on a cross for me for. See, we don't want to associate ourselves with that because, in many cases, if I could really be very honest with you all, we don't want the responsibility of what comes with living a changed life. Therefore, it's pride. We're like, you know what? I'm just going to think about myself right now. I'm okay with saying that I am depraved, I am worthless, I can't do anything right. It's just a miracle God loves me. You see, it sounds quote unquote humble to say that.
Yet all the emphasis is on you.
Exactly. And watch this though. Watch this though. The emphasis and the focus is on you, but you're lifting the responsibility off you. You want the when we say all these things like, oh, I'm just broken. I'm a shame. I'm a sinner. We say all these things. We make it sound so humble, but you know what we're really saying? I don't have to be the one to go out there and change the world that's being destroyed day by day. I don't have to be the one to go out there. It's just a miracle God loves me. So all I got to do is invite somebody to come to church with me, and then that's where the responsibility ends. We don't want to live changed in front of that person, so the next person can see that this is a real thing to live. It's not about having a changed life. It's all about living just my life is secured and my destiny in heaven is secured, which is why for years, for those of you who have followed me, I preached against a going to heaven and going to hell mentality. Sure, these places exist, but I care more about why don't you be a light on this earth today while it's still today? Because you're going against the Bible where it says don't worry about tomorrow. You don't know the evils of tomorrow.
Not save you so that you could just go to heaven. If he did, then you would disappear. With, oh, there you go. You're saved. So just disappear. In fact, it would probably be a little bit more convincing if people were just disappearing after they got saved. And I'm like,
Exactly.
it's just the meaning of salvation, um, going back because I was going to go on a heaven and hell tantrum, but,
and,
look,
and please, I'm not yelling at y'all. I love y'all. Y'all know this. I love y'all. But sometimes I am more stern and more serious because I've heard these things destroy people's identities.
yeah,
I've seen people's lives literally not go up to their fullest potential because of the lies they were told by the church, telling them that they still have demons inside of them or devils inside of them because of certain dreams they have. I'm tired of it.
well, yeah, there's a lot, to it, and not picking on the church, as far as the organized church, people, we will make errors, and we it's expected that you might sin. That's why First John talks about that if we confess those sins, not ask for forgiveness over and over and over and over, but if you confess that sin, then Jesus is faithful to forgive and cleanse you of any unrighteousness. So even if you do sin and you confess that sin, you're just as clean. You're still on the righteous path. So, there are errors that have happened in the church. Mistakes were made, and mistakes are going to continue to be made. But that's why when you know better, you do better. My mother always says that. So it's like we have to consider that the church is not trying to steer wrong, but there are things that we do need to learn. Stop calling yourself a sinner. That's not it. That's not where it is. Meanwhile, you say that Job was perfect and faithful. Well, if Job was perfect and faithful, he didn't even have Jesus. These are the same people. You say Job was. I don't say Job didn't do anything wrong. That's you guys' doctrine that say that Job never did anything wrong. You blame his friends, you blame his wife, you blame God. It was God who allowed the devil to do it just to test Job, And I'm like, yeah. So if I got a 4-year-old son and I'm just going to hand him over to somebody who's going to run him over with a car, who's going to do unspeakable things to him in the dark, he's going to do all these types of things. But you know why I'm doing it? To prove that he loves me. Yep, I'm gonna prove it to everybody. You see my son just getting run over by the car, everybody? And do you see him just loving me through it? Yeah. You see, I was like, that ego is bigger than Vegeta's. You got a super ultra ego times 4. You know what I mean? Like, no, the government would take your kids away from you because you're not a good father to do that. But we blame God anyway, and we just say Job is completely, what's good, Nick? So we say that Job is completely 100% infallible. But if Job was, then what's our excuse? If you're going to go with that, then what's our excuse? What are we going through that Job wasn't going through? I'd rather look at Jesus as that person and say, if Jesus went through this to the point to where he was sweating blood, okay, if he went through a beating that made him unrecognizable, so much so that they had to put his name in 3 different languages above him, he was that beaten. If he had to stay on a cross, hung there, and he went through all that, didn't even open up his mouth when he could have gotten off of that cross at any time, and he didn't, then why are we complaining that we got blocked on Facebook? Why are we complaining that people who we don't even care about don't like us? People who are not even your loved ones, if they say something wrong or if they cut you off in traffic, our day is ruined. You know what I mean? Like that is pride. That's an overinflated sense of self or an underinflated sense of self. Like, they cut you off in traffic, bro. Like, look, it happens. How do you know? Because when you cut somebody off in traffic, sometimes it's because you just didn't see them. Maybe their whole day should be ruined and you need to be begging God for forgiveness because you accidentally cut somebody off in traffic. Or maybe it's just not that big,
Or
look at what Jesus went through.
I want to just even say it's like all this, and at the end of the day, we got to look at what is this costing me? Like, what is this costing me, man? When we say pride will cost you everything, we literally heard a testimony where our brother here could have died. But let's just make some real practical things as we can wrap it up. How much has pride damaged a marriage beyond repair in some cases? Some cases they've repaired, but because you had to get the last word in and say that one comment that you didn't have to say.
You ain't been married long enough.
And then it's like you go out and say a comment that you didn't have to say. Then now it's like when the dust settles and the anger clears, now it's like trust is broken. You see, pride has a tendency, because it only focuses on how I feel. Do you know what you do? You isolate others around you. When you isolate yourself, you're isolating others around you, and now they feel by themselves. And then we have everybody put together in a community feeling like they're by themselves. You create a recipe for disaster. You create the recipe for destruction. You create the recipe of fear. You create the recipe of I don't want to trust this person with anything. And it goes against it's truly antichrist because it goes against the very thing that God desired from the beginning. See, God desired from the very beginning. I went over this a few days ago. God desired in the very beginning with Adam and Eve that He made a principle. God is a lawgiver. He's a lawgiver, and he creates principles. One of the very principles he created when it comes to human beings and human connection was that it is not good for man to be alone. That was a principle. And the reason why it was a principle, it wasn't necessarily for man and woman, because if it was for man and woman, he would have just created Eve right after. He didn't create Eve right after. He created the animals. You got to think about that for a second. He created the animals before he created Eve, and because he created the animals, did the animals just did not do their part? No. If you look around the environment, animals play a big role in the ecosystem that we have on planet Earth. You don't believe me? Research bees. If we lose out on all the bees, if bees go extinct, that's that's a big impact on the human life. A huge impact on the human life. So animals had their job, but it still wasn't a full compatibility for Adam. And it wasn't for God to see that, it was for Adam to see that. It was for Adam to see that nobody else could pair with that. So I wanna really just give y'all just a scope of this. Let me just say one last thing. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to give you a scope that this whole thing of pride is when you isolate yourself and say, I just want to do me and just do everything by myself. You're going against a foundational principle of the entire earth. You're going against God's design order when you do that. And if you go against God's order, you know what it's like? It's like trying to hold up. Give me an example. It's like trying to push a car uphill. You're going to have. I'm not saying it can't get done, but you're gonna have so much pain and so much work doing the hard work. Life works better. There are cases where you have to go against the grain. I'm not saying you have to go against. You can never go against the grain. But in many cases, with us as people, it's really just best to go with the flow sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I was just saying that these are do a little shameless plug. This is actually a book that I am re-releasing, the second edition of the Foundation. It's called the Foundation, so y'all look out for that. I'm going to be releasing that. We're also writing I'm also writing a devotional. My wife just published a devotional for wives, and I'm going to be publishing something on husbands and finances with that, just to show you guys that is an amazing thing. You're not an introvert. You're not an introvert. I know that saying was invented, but it was invented by psychology, and this is not psychological. Look at my wife putting that in there by the book. So it's not a psychological thing. It is not good for man to be alone, and that includes you. When you are alone, and this is part of the book, so I recommend it. We'll be doing some conferences on it as well to really show forth. What if God made each other? Because when you think about it, the first law, this is how important this is, you guys. You love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And let's not even get into the soul right now, because that's another thing. But you love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And we separate once again what God has joined together. You love your neighbor as yourself. And that doesn't mean you love your neighbor as you love yourself. The Bible never, ever talks about you loving yourself. All right. I've seen people fight against this. Well, no, you do need to give self-love. No, there's a difference between caring for yourself and self-love. Okay. When there's self-love, love by definition means to give to someone else, to sacrifice yourself for someone else. How do you sacrifice yourself for yourself? So there's no such thing as self-love. All right. But God says to love others as God has loved you. That's what love your neighbor as yourself means. It means to love your neighbor as you yourself are loved by God. But Jesus joins these two together. He says that if you're not doing the second one, you're not doing the first one. So if you don't love your neighbor as God has loved you, it's not because of your neighbor, it's because you don't love God. Well, I know how to solve that. I don't have any neighbors. That way, I don't have to, I can just act like I love God. Yeah. And it's amazing how much we love God until somebody else comes into the picture. Until
So
you get
did you just
married, until you have a child, until you get a job where you have to work together with somebody, until you have brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, cousins, you know. I mean, until somebody else gets there, you love God and you can praise him all by yourself. You love it. You praise God. Soon as somebody else gets there, you're fighting. I'm like, you're proving that you don't love God, because in order to love God, you have to love your neighbor as God loves you. So I'm like,
so quick question. Are you saying, I'm interrupt you, are you saying when people try to get away from their neighbors, are they trying to get away from loving God then?
you're getting away from loving God. Wives, I'm going to put the call to action. Wives, submit to your husbands. Well, I don't have anything to submit to. No, it's because you're not submitting to God. That's all it is. It's all it. For a wife to not submit to her husband, I didn't say not obey her husband. Like if he tells you to do something to go against your conscience and against God, it doesn't say to be obedient. It doesn't say wives obey your husbands and everything. It says children obey your parents. Okay, so wife is not a child. What I'm saying is a wife who will not submit to the authority of her husband, it's because you do not love God. And
And
same with a husband.
likewise,
A
I
husband
want to
who doesn't
go
love his
ahead.
wife, not because of your wife. It's not because your wife cheated on you. It's not because your wife is disrespectful. It's not because your wife is dishonorable. It's because you do not love God. There is zero
Mhm.
excuse for a husband to not love his wife. You are proving that you do not love God. And it's
And
shown
why?
by in Genesis 3 when Adam didn't protect and love his wife. In fact, he blamed God. That woman that you put here, she did it. You didn't even, you threw your wife under the bus, bro.
He threw two people under the bus
He threw God
in the
and his
same
wife
sentence.
under the bus in the same
In the
sentence.
same sentence, he threw two people under the bus. Like,
There's
come
no
on, dude.
way that you could tell me that you love God and you don't even love your wife. Well, my wife is, we're not really getting along. Okay, well, you need to love her because she's your sister in
Can I?
Christ.
Can I?
People will
Can
know
I?
that
Can I?
you are of
Can,
God because you love your brothers and sisters. She's not saved. Love your enemies. I mean, like, there's no
can
way.
I?
What can you
Can
tell
I?
me?
Can I? Can I touch on that? And this is where I have to cut in with that. And I love what you're saying with it. I'm agree with you, by the way. I have to cut in because we have been tricked and indoctrinated to believe that love, in most sense, has to do with your feelings. Love, we've been taught by Hollywood. Hollywood has taught you love is an emotional thing, where love is more of a sacrificial and an actionable thing. Watch this.
What kind of love are you talking about?
Well, there's quite a few, but in terms of actual feeling, most times where it says love, the actual it's an action. It's not a feeling. That's what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
The
I agree
feelings
with you.
pass.
I'm challenging you.
It's an action. Means husbands, you have an action and an actionable order to go love that woman. It's not telling you to feel, it's to love. Now when it says love, let's get to think, well, what does this mean? Turn off Hollywood. Because Hollywood will tell you, well, you need this, you need this, you need this, you need that, you need that. Well, they should do this, they should do this, they should do that. And it has to look like a picture. Go ahead.
You know, we're over an hour. Is that okay? I just wanted to make sure that
Oh, are you okay? 'Cause I'm closing out soon.
I just wanted to respect the stream. Like if we were, because I was like, yo, we're at an hour and 5, and
Hey,
we're actually
listen,
being short, and we're still.
Listen, everybody. Are you okay with the bonus? Or y'all want us to close out? Y'all want us to close out? We'll close out right here. I, I, I'll cut my mic. I will cut my mic immediately. Because Joseph Brand, what's going on, man? He said First Corinthians 13. He says, I mean, I'm here. Appreciate you, Joseph.
I
Thanks for
mean,
coming
yeah,
out.
you know, you when you're talking about, because we've been trained by the Greeks, the Socratic method, and that's where a lot of the
That's where I'm going at.
disconnect from that's where you get that love is a feeling thing. And I get it. If you're talking about Eros, that god of passion, Eros, that's where we get our word erotic from, then yeah, like you're going to say that love is a feeling. If you're talking about, Philemon, like philia, that's the friendly,
Brotherly love.
really love, where you get
Yeah.
Philadelphia. So I'm like, you have all of these words, but they're describing it. But the Bible talks about agape. The love of God means self-sacrificing love, and I'm
That's what I'm
like,
getting at.
if you're talking about that, then don't replace love your neighbor as God loves you with eros. Erotically love your neighbor the way that God erotically loves you. God doesn't erotically love you, you know.
It's both.
Self-sacrifice. It has to be a decision and a commitment. When you're talking about decision and commitment, a decision is one time. A commitment is forever, and that's where a lot of people will cut off the. I'll say it, and I don't mean to be graphic, but the highest thing that a woman can offer is her body. That's not the highest thing that a man can offer. That's why a man can be intimate with a woman and then leave. Whereas women are more connected because that's the highest thing that she can do is to give her body. That's a decision. A man, the highest thing that he can give her is a commitment. That's why God says that, when you talk about, well, marriage, that's just ruining things. No, God is saying before a woman gives the highest thing that she can give, a man has to give the highest thing that he can give, and he has to give it first. He has to give a commitment first because that's what love is for that. That means that because when you think about it, why would a man stay in a relationship if he has not given his commitment that he would? He's just going to divorce because I don't really feel like it. Well, we've had like 4 and 5 kids and she doesn't look the way that she used to. I'm going to go look for a pretty young thing. No, he has to give a commitment that I'm not leaving. And until he says that and admits that, then a woman doesn't make the decision to give him herself. So it's like decision one time, commitment forever. And a man needs to give his commitment first, then women decide that they will give it. That's the way that God does it. And it is a display of love, but the man has to lead. He has to lead by making that commitment, for better or
That
for worse,
is
richer or for poorer. And
that is foreign.
then when it gets worse, it's just like, oh, I'm out. You said for better or for worse. Like, no, that's what the whole point of commitment is. Sometimes that's all you have to stand on is your vow. So,
I
that
literally,
is a form of love.
I'll close it out with this because this is the end. If you want to talk about getting rid of pride out of a marriage or anything of that nature, this is what I said to the bride and groom today when I was toasting for their wedding. I close with this. I said, if I can give y'all
L'chaim.
any advice, like, okay, if I can give y'all any advice, it's love who you are now. We gotta say I do at the altar, but love who you'll be as you grow because who you see each other now will not be who you see 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You're gonna see a different person as time goes on. And the key is to love each other as you go. You have to keep loving the new person because I said, both of y'all ain't gonna be the same person who y'all are today, 5 or 10 years from now. Don't go off the feeling. Go off of, you know what? I know something new's coming ahead. That is a way. That's how marriages keep going. The reason why most marriages fail, and I didn't say this is the wedding, but the reason why most marriages fail, because they're trying to relive of what was so special, that spark that they had when they first met. And the thing is, you're not who you was when you first met. That's the problem. So I'm gonna close it out though. 'Cause I know you got to go soon, and we've been out here for a lot. My apologies for keeping you 10 minutes over your time,
Yeah, sorry, Jar, bro.
bro. Okay, I got you. I got you on that. But any questions or anything else before we bounce on out? I appreciate everyone who came by the stream. Joseph, Charity, Tawanda, Nintendo, Jacob, Gail, Jessica, Shamare. I appreciate all y'all who came out tonight. This was dope. Bless you, brother. I pray you both of your night's sleep and well and be kind. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm gonna get on out of here. If you all enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Matter of fact, not just my subscribe button, but Yofi Smith as well. I'm gonna send out his information as well. I'm gonna start putting his information in the chat before it starts, so this way y'all have his channel to go subscribe to, because this this brother's amazing. Make sure y'all subscribe to him as well, and most of all, you make sure you share this with a friend. This is Avedon and Yofi Smith, and we are out. Peace.